Comparison is the thief of joy. Unfortunately, every time when they adapt a video game to a movie, I can't help but to compare it. There are of course video game adaptations that work better than others. Sonic and Mario are two great examples. Why? Because the focus on those games isn't necessarily the story. So you can take elements and lore from those worlds and place them however you want. Why? Because there are games that are doing the exact same thing. But whenever they do a game where the story is heavy and it has a ton of lore and there's a bunch of great writing with the characters and people fall in love with these characters and these characters matter, they never seem to do the movie or the adaptation right. And the latest to attempt this feat is PlayStation. With Until Dawn. I played Until Dawn and I believe it belongs on the top 10 list of greatest PS4 games of all time. I didn't think it deserved a remake, and I didn't think they would be able to make a movie out of it. Because the central point of that game is that you control the outcome of the characters. Decisions you make in the game impact the story overall. So out of all the IPs PlayStation have, I always thought this would have been the hardest to adapt from a story perspective, because the game delivers a different experience to each person who plays it. There's different outcomes, different characters die. And I don't know if it's because of that, because it has different branches of story, or simply because they do this every single time. But what this movie did was just take bits and pieces of the game and turned it into their own world with their own story. This movie has barely anything to do with the Until Dawn game. So if you're going in wanting a one-for-one adaptation of the game into the movie, you're not going to get that. But as far as a movie goes, I don't think this was awful. Shit, I think it had potential to be great. Unfortunately, it's really forcing itself to fit inside the cookie cutter horror mold, which is what ended up hurting the movie in the end of the day, and just turning it into yet another run-of-the-mill horror film. It has good ideas, but they were just pasted together in a way that doesn't make the film feel special. So you have this group of hot friends who are just taking a trip 1 year after our main protagonist Clover's sister disappears. God, I hated her name. It's like the female version of a douchey name, Clover. Just call her Triss or something basic, Clover. And she's that one character that just wanders off 3 or 4 times during the movie. So the whole movie, everybody's looking for her. Clover, 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 Clover. You can't forget about it even if you try. I really did not like your name. Why did everybody else has normal names like Mia, Nina, whatever the hell? Clover. At least they didn't write it like, oh, she's good luck or some cringy bullshit. It's not even a big deal. It's just her name annoyed me. So they eventually come across a visitor center where more missing people's faces are up on a wall. There's this spooky hourglass and it eventually flips, and during the night they all get killed. The hourglass empties and they wake up in the same position that they were before. So they're stuck in a time loop trying to figure out a way out of it while still trying to find out what happened to Clover's sister. Which is really what I liked about this movie. It's its premise. It's a little bit of Happy Death Day. It's almost like a roguelike game also, I guess. They're just running around discovering things in their surroundings to try to help them find a way out. What's going on? Who's who? Who's what? Who's this? Why this? What's going on? This world is weird and creepy. They die and they wake up and start all over again. Although interesting, the world that they build is not even remotely close to the game. They do use the Psycho and the Wendigos and even add more creatures, but there's more of a supernatural aspect to the movie that I felt did not belong because it's simply not in the game. There's some dark magic stuff floating around, like there's powers, characters get dragged by nothing or sent flying across the room by visually nothing. This one character gets possessed. There's just a lot of horror tropes. They're done well, but it doesn't go with Until Dawn. So aside for that for a moment, I'm trying my best to ignore the game, but I can't. Putting the game aside, I do feel like the movie is trying to be good. I thought it was going to be something that they would just like use the IP to post whatever on screen just for like a cash grab. It does feel like the movie's trying to be interesting. It does feel like they're trying to do something. There's a ton of jump scare attempts. A few got me, I'm not gonna lie. There is one that's really, really good. Like the setup for it was great. I hate when you're just talking and then, oh, a jump scare, just a jump scare. Is it gonna scare me? Hell yeah, it's gonna scare me depending on how invested I am in the movie. So even though there's a lot of them and some of them are just pop-ups. None of them really feel like they're just throwing shit on screen all of a sudden to scare you. But this one that really got me, I just like that the way that it was set up. It's distracting you with something and made sense how it got me. It felt like that was done in a respecting the jump scare way of doing that, if there even is a way to jump scare. The tension was built correctly. When it popped up, it was correctly. Like, it doesn't feel like I was waiting for a jump scare to happen, and it happened. But it makes sense when it happened. Out of all of the jump scares, this one was done really, really well, even compared to other films that do jump scares. But most of them are, we're panning the camera and then all of a sudden, right? Or there's a light flicker and then so there's a lot of that. But there's some creativity in the way that they show up. So once you find out that the characters could come back from being dead, and also the characters find this out, the death's impact is lessened. Obviously, it doesn't mean the same, but also it gives a bit of a video game feel to it. Like, well, this run is screwed up because so-and-so died, so we can't like try and survive the night because then so-and-so's dead, so let's all die and try again. And I guess if you see it that way of trying to implement video game aspects to it, they did a good job in doing that. I won't say that Until Dawn necessarily has that trope. I feel like roguelike games have more of that, but I guess I can see in Until Dawn, if a character dies and you don't want them to die, then you retry and, play it back. I guess it's not exactly the same, but I can see that there was an effort into maybe trying to generate that feeling, which it did. So I gotta give them props for it. The deaths are pretty fun. There's one that made me laugh. I don't think its intent was to make me laugh. It's not supposed to be funny, but every time it happened, I just chuckled because it's just so ridiculous, right? What happens is just so ridiculous. And it happens throughout the movie. It's like, not lore, but it's something that is established. If you do this, this is gonna happen. But there's just no explanation to it. There's really not a whole lot of rhyme or reason for anything that happens in the movie, I feel like. Like I said, they ditched the entire lore and they just made their whole shit up, but then there's no real world building from what's going on. Why is this happening? What's the purpose of what's happening? It's just kind of happening. So yeah, some deaths are really cool. They do a lot of interesting and fun gore as well. And very much like the game, it's dark. Like, you can't really see, especially when they're being chased, you can just see their flashlights or lights beaming. You can't tell what the hell's going on screen, but that happens in the game as well. So if they were drawing inspiration from that, then kudos. The characters are very cookie cutter. You have the one that thinks she's a psychic. You have the savior sister, the friend that she dated. You have a couple with the wild girl of the group, and she's has her boyfriend who's new to the group, and their dynamics play out exactly how you would expect them to be. There's really no nuance to the characters. The characters are written very bland, very one note. No one really has an arc. No one really changes as how they come into the movie. Therefore, the way that they're written, no actor really wows you with their performance. They do use Peter Stormare. Hopefully I'm saying his name correctly. I'm probably not. But he's featured in the game as well, so you recognize him. He's a legendary actor. He was good, but it's very much that the characters are what they are and do what they do. There's really no nuance to it. It's very black and white in terms of the characters. There really isn't nothing to hold on to any character. Like, I find it very difficult to pick who was my favorite. They're all really one note. No one really changes. There's one character that kind of switches up for a split second, but it kind of gets dealt with. And then that's it. It's very basic drama, if you will. And it's like the characters are just kind of there for the ride. The whole movie is just kind of there. Even though I feel like they did a good job in trying to create new things, I kind of wish that if they're not going to copy paste the game, just swing big. Just go even bigger and better. Try to take bigger risks. The time loop thing I found to be very interesting, but I wish that they figured out a way to do more with it. I always say, do cool shit. And I can feel the movie trying to do cool shit. Some things were working and others just fell flat, but there was intent behind what was happening. I don't understand this strat of using an IP to draw people in to go see the movie, but then don't use the IP basically at all outside of characters. So then the thing that we're drawn to is not being used. Until Dawn is not just about Wendigos and a psycho killer guy. It's the stories and the relationships between the characters, and really you experiencing that whole thing. Like, video games is a different art form. It's a different way of telling stories, and because you're playing with these characters, you're invested in that story, you're experiencing the thing, so you can't just slap characters on a movie screen and then call it a day. There's lore, there's history, there's a bunch to these characters which makes you invested into them. So if you use none of that, then what do you have? Just makes no sense to me at all. And in this case, it's a bit frustrating because this movie could have been this year's Talk to Me if they had just leaned more into the interesting ideas that this movie's bringing and ditching the IP completely. If you redesign the hourglass and the creatures, there's really nothing else that says Until Dawn about this movie. It's a really cool movie idea and premise, but for the wrong movie. So at the end of the day, because it's tied to the IP and they're kind of like forcing IP elements to it, it turns out to be an okay movie. It's like something that you would see on a random movie night, pop it on when it eventually comes to a streaming platform. If you ignore that it's from Until Dawn, especially if you're a fan, there will be something that you will enjoy in the moment, but then completely forget about the whole thing in about 2 hours. It has your typical old school tropes and it has a ton of jump scares and very fun gory deaths. So I won't say that they just completely phoned it in as a cash grab. There's some effort put in this movie, but ultimately the result of the movie was just okay. And it's not using the IP correctly, which drives me crazy. It never works. Tell me one time when they took an IP that has rich lore and is story driven and it has awesome written characters, and then they grab it and do whatever they want with it and then spit it back out without respecting any of that and it working. And what's even crazier is that they don't fucking learn. They do the same shit over and over and over. Oh, well, this didn't work. Well, no, I'm going to do it. So it's going to work because I'm doing it. So I'm going to take it and tell my story. Yes, but we don't give a fuck about your story. We give a fuck about the stories that are already written. That's why we're here to see the shit that's already made for you, you dumb fuck. Every time that there's a new video game adaptation, I come on here, bitch about it, and end up saying the same thing. Who the fuck are you that you think you can just show up and do whatever you want? All you have to do is copy and paste. And in this case, you already have the cast. The cast of the game is better than the cast of the movie. Fine, everybody's too expensive, recast them. But you're not doing that. You're just changing the game. You're just changing what made the game work and throwing it on screen for some reason. And again, what really sucks is this movie has potential. If it would have ditched the IP, I think it would have had more success than with the IP, because some of the ideas they do feel fresh enough to work in a very fun way, especially if you tweak some things around. I guess it's kind of a spoiler alert, but at the end of the movie, they kind of tease the snowy cabin and you see Rami Malek's profile, like his name, all his traits or whatever, but the picture that they use is like from CGI ripped off the game. So the character exists, he's there, but it's like, it just looked weird. It wasn't a picture of Rami Malek. It was it was like the game picture. So they kind of give you a sense that this is a prequel to the game. And if it is, what they did in this movie messes up whatever happens in the game. They changed it too much that even if they were to copy and paste it like I would want them to do, it doesn't work anymore because you changed some of the main focuses from the game in the story that it's not going to fit anymore. So if you wanted a true Until Dawn movie, this isn't it. But if you want to see an okay movie with interesting ideas, cool gore, fun kills, then give Until Dawn a shot. It's not a terrible movie. It's simply just not an Until Dawn movie. But those were my thoughts. Let me know yours down in the comments. And while you're down there, if you enjoyed this video, drop a like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Thank you guys for watching. Remember to always and forever, you do you.
PlayStation